Good afternoon, everyone. This is Dierdre Mayi. I will be leading today's second grade Wonders 2020 presentation. I'm so thrilled that you're here today. I am joined by Raquel Darling-Greer, and Ms. Darling-Greer is your SCS representative for this session. Ms. Darling-Greer, did you want to say anything to the group before we begin?
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm just excited to be here, engaging the learning with you all. Please feel free to ask any questions. I will be in the chat box.
All right, thank you so much. Now, that said, you are all muted, and so you will be communicating through the chat box. I'll be giving some fairly specific instructions about how to use the chat box in just a moment. Now that you've seen me and you know that I'm a real person, I am going to turn off my camera to preserve some bandwidth, but we're going to get started, and I'm really so very excited to be here with you today. All right, so let's begin in earnest. Now, we want everyone to receive credit for being here today. So if you would, please refer to the slide that you see on the screen. You should be seeing a slide that says PLV credit. Note that McGraw-Hill will be sending a report of who is in this meeting to SCS. Therefore, you want to log in using a device. By logging in with a device, that ensures that your name will be included in the report that we send forward. Okay? So I'll give you a moment so that you can look at this announcement just once more and make sure that you are governing yourselves accordingly, because we want everyone to get credit. All right, and if I need to come back to this screen at another time, I will certainly be happy to do so, but I do want you all to get credit for being here today. Now, as we get started, we've got very little time to accomplish a lot of objectives. What are the objectives for today? Well, today, it's my hope that you will gain an understanding of the main print components and their instructional purpose. It is hoped that you will gain an understanding of unit structure and lesson format. It is also hoped that you will gain an understanding of the instructional flow of both whole group and small group. Also, that you will gain an understanding of assessment options, along with an understanding of digital resources. We also want you to gain an understanding of additional on-demand professional development and support resources. There will be many. Now, because of the fact that you are muted, you will need to be in contact with us via the chat window. Now, please be reminded that when you open up the chat window, you will want to make sure that your message is being sent to host, presenter, and panelist. If you look on the screen, you will see that I've highlighted host, presenter, and panelist. Here's why. Ms. Darling-Greer will be addressing some of the SCS-specific questions that come through the chat box. She will be letting me know which program-specific questions I need to answer. I won't be looking at the chat box, and so therefore you will want to make sure that you are not sending your questions to the host only. I won't be able to see them. Now, if during this session you see something that you want to to record or grab, please feel free to take screen grabs. Please feel free to take photographs. We encourage that. We emailed to all participants prior to this session a bit.ly link, or actually, I think we sent the documents directly. Now, if you did not receive documents from McGraw-Hill regarding Wonders for second grade prior to this training, no worries. If you look on my screen, on the left side, you will see a bit.ly URL. If you access that bit.ly URL, there are some materials there that we think will be very, very helpful. Now, if you don't have the chance to take down this bit.ly URL right now, please don't worry. We will be sharing this bit.ly URL again. But if possible, please either write it down or take a picture of it. So you're probably wondering, what sort of resources did we place within that bit.ly link? Well, we provided for you not only an agenda for today, but we provided the PDF of the second grade unit and week that we'll be using to talk through. Okay, so you will see the teacher's edition pages for that entire week. We also provided a takeaway bookmark, which has some information that we think will be very useful to you as you are engaging in self-study. We provided a note-taking mechanism for those of you who wanted to have some guidance with respect to taking notes about today. But very importantly, we included a component list. This component list will tell you about the resources that you are going to receive in print. And so that's very, very important. Now, again, if you did not have the chance to write down that bit.ly link, I will be providing it again before our time together ends. Okay, so moving on, let's talk about your main instructional tool. That's going to be your teacher's edition. You will receive 6 teacher's editions. Why 6? Because there are 6 units at second grade. These teacher's editions are spiral bound. And one of the ways in which you're going to utilize that spiral binding is to snap in these wonderful tabs that we are providing to you. So what do these snap-in tabs do? They give you information about the standards that you will be teaching. You can take these snap-in tabs and place them wherever you would like within the week of instruction that you are teaching. These snap-in tabs will list your ELA standards as well as any science or social studies standards that you're going to be addressing during this particular week. We wanted you to be really sure that you are addressing the standards, and certainly you will be. Now, as you open up your teacher's edition, your Unit 1 teacher's edition for the first time, you're going to notice that there are front matter pages that mention something called Start Smart. Start Smart is embedded within your Unit 1, Weeks 1 and 2 of instruction. And here's what Start Smart does. It allows you to begin introducing the Wonders routines to the students. That's probably the most important thing that you'll do during Start Smart. Now, these routines are going to go through the entire school year, And certainly next year, as students find themselves in third grade, through Wonders, they're going to use those same routines. So establishing routines will be important. Once these routines are established, students can turn their concerns to actually learning how to read, actually learning the content, because they don't have to be concerned about what's going to happen next. Another important aspect of Start Smart is that you will introduce social-emotional learning. Social-emotional learning is critical. We want students to understand how it is that they should get along with each other and how they should communicate to further their learning. You'll find that we address both habits of learning as well as classroom culture within Start Smart. Social-emotional learning is critical because we understand that as students learn to read, they are more effective at learning to read if they are self-confident, if they understand task persistence, if they understand the power of yes, that I might not know it now, but ultimately I'll get it. If they can empathize with each other and care for each other, they will more effectively be able to collaborate with each other. And so you're going to find that we will build in all of this social emotional learning to every single week of instruction. I mentioned previously that we would focus upon classroom culture and habits of learning. Note that each and every week there will be habits of learning and classroom culture points that are noted. And I'll talk more about that in just a bit. But let's talk about these social emotional skills. We're going to address social emotional learning in two very specific ways in Wonders. First of all, you'll find that there's going to be an essential question and a theme every single week. Well, we're going to attach that social emotional learning skill to not only the theme and the essential question, but the text that students are going to be reading. And we also will address social emotional learning through giving students opportunities to talk to each other, to work together, but to even work independently. Anytime you see two heads together, the icon of two heads together, that means that therein lies an opportunity for students to collaborate. You will find a lot of collaboration within Wonders. And we're not going to expect collaboration to happen naturally. We're going to make it happen through teaching students these important skills. Now, with respect to classroom culture, here are the things that we're going to emphasize. First, that we learn through modeling and practice. Next, that we inspire confident writers. We respect and value each other's experiences. We promote ownership of learning. We foster a love of reading. And we build knowledge. During Start Smart, we're going to introduce each element of classroom culture. But after Start Smart, each unit will focus upon one of the classroom culture statements. And we're going to see that statement come to life in our room during that particular unit. Now, habits of learning are habits and behaviors that we want to cultivate in students. We want the students to learn these habits of learning, hide them in their hearts, and take them as they leave our classrooms and go into college or career, wherever life takes them. Again, the habits of learning will be featured in Start Smart, but then we will focus on one specifically for each unit. The habits of learning are stated as I statements, and they are as follows. I use a variety of strategies when I read. I think critically about what I am reading. I write to communicate effectively. I am part of a community of learners. I believe I can succeed. And I am a critical thinker and problem solver. Those are the habits of learning. Now, earlier I mentioned that it would be really critical to teach routines during Start Smart. Again, Start Smart is embedded in Unit 1, Weeks 1 and 2. These routines are really important because, again, they will be used so frequently within Wonders. And they take the guesswork out of what the student should be doing, allowing them to focus on what it is that you are teaching. We wanted to make it easy for you to find all of the routines at once. So we made the Instructional Routines Handbook available to you in print. You're going to see it on that list of components that I mentioned being available within that bit.ly link. Because we don't know when each of you will receive your print materials, we wanted you to be able to get to the Instructional Routines Handbook online. During the digital portion of our time together today, I am going to be certain to tell you where the Instructional Routine Handbook resides so that you will be able to get into that handbook and really understand why the Wonders routines are the way that they are. Furthermore, we wanted you to be ready for teaching Wonders, so we provided some model lesson videos. Under the resources link on the Wonders site, you will find a professional development link. Under that professional development link, you will see model lessons. You'll choose a filter and you will decide what type of lesson portion you want to view. And then you will be able to see a teacher in live action. Here's an example of what those videos look and feel like.
Are you ready? You're just going to take off the first sound on every word. You're going to isolate the beginning sound. Are you ready? I'm going to model first, boys and girls, okay? Happy's going to say the first sound. Miss Russo saying the ending part. When my hands come together, you all get to say the whole word together. But first, let me just model. Up, ma. Good. Let's ready. You guys ready to go? Watch carefully. At. Add.
So that gives you an example of what these videos are like. Now, over the course of Start Smart, it is possible that you might want to assess your students to determine where they are. It could be that over the course of the summer, that students have experienced considerable slide, although I hope that that will not be the case. It could be that students' foundational skills might not be what they used to be. You will be able to use our placement and diagnostic assessments to perform various types of assessments during Start Smart, if that is your wish. There are sight word fluency assessments, phonics surveys, leveled passages, which will help you determine what your students' comprehension level is. If you'd like to give your students vocabulary assessment, they are also available, along with inventories of developmental spelling. There are many, many more assessments available, but those are a few of the ones that are most popular during the first week or two of school. So now that we have discussed Start Smart, I'd like to talk a bit about the unit structure that you will find within Wonders. You'll recall that I mentioned that you would receive 6 Teacher's Editions. I mentioned that the reason for this is that there are 6 units at 2nd grade. Remember, Start Smart is embedded into Unit 1, Weeks 1 and 2. You'll find that there are 6 weeks of instruction per unit, but keep in mind, for weeks 1 through 5, there will always be new literature and new instruction. Week 6 is essentially there for you to review and assess. So if you were to open up your Teacher's Edition, and if you were to look at the unit overview, even the table of contents, if you will, you're going to notice that the weeks are divided up by genre studies. So weeks 1 and 2 will last for 10 days. So you'll essentially spend 10 days in a particular genre. As you look at the example on the screen, realistic fiction is the genre for weeks 1 and 2, those 10 days. The second genre study, again, will last for 10 days, 2 weeks. The genre here will be fantasy in this example. Now, genre study 3 only lasts for 5 days, so 1 instructional week. Again, genre study 3 will last for only 1 week, 5 days. And remember, in week 6, the students aren't being inundated with new content. Remember, week 6 is a week for review, extension, and assessment. And again, week 6 is a 5-day week. Okay? So the first 2 genre studies each last for 10 days. Week 5 lasts for 5 days. Week 6 also lasts for 5 days. When you arrive at your weeks of instruction, you're going to notice that we want to prepare you and let you know what the outcomes are that you should expect. So on the student outcomes page, we will list outcomes for the skills that students are learning, outcomes for writing, for speaking and listening, for language development. You'll see outcomes for foundational skills, for research and inquiry even content area learning. Now, anytime you see a red check next to any content under that student outcomes, on that student outcomes page, that means that this is content that will be tested in Wonders, okay? Now, you should know that SCS is arranging the curriculum maps that you will use. The curriculum maps will be your ultimate arbiter of what you will do within Wonders. So as I talk through what's available in Wonders, please know that it is your curriculum map that will guide you. Now, the things that you see that are checked will be things that are considered core. Very, very, very important. So I'm certain that in some way, shape, form, or fashion, you will see that content in your curriculum map, okay? So again, anything with a check is considered quite critical and will be tested. Now, as you continue to turn through your teacher's editions for whichever unit you happen to pick up, you would also notice that foundational skills are important in second grade. Second grade, in my estimation, is really the most interesting grade level for Wonders. And here's why I say this. At second grade, you have 1 foot in first grade, where the emphasis is still very largely on decodable text. But you also have a foot in third grade, where the emphasis is very strongly on complex text. Second grade, you will do it all. So as you look at this foundational skills overview, for whichever weeks you happen to be surveying, you're going to notice on the left side of the screen that there are certain tools that you will use to support foundational skills. Most of these tools are tools that you are going to receive in print. Remember, I noted at the beginning of our time together that there is a components list that resides inside of that bit.ly link. You will see the resources that you will receive in print, and many of them are for foundational skills support. Of course, if you look on the left side of the screen, you'll see that some of this content is online content. If you look just to the right of the support materials, you're going to see what the phonological and phonemic awareness aims are for those weeks at which you are looking. You will see what the phonics skill is for that particular week or set of weeks. You will see what the spelling skill is. Now, you will note that whatever the phonics skill is, the spelling words will always have the same pattern. Always, always, always. So they will be very meaningfully linked. You'll see information about high-frequency words also. Now, on the right side of the screen, I want you to notice that there is a skills trace at the top of the page. Anytime you see skills in red, that indicates that these are skills to which the students have previously been introduced. So in some way, the students have worked with those skills. The skills that you see in white are skills that students have yet to learn. Now, you're going to be teaching foundational skills on a daily basis in second grade. It will be systematic and it will be explicit. Notice that there's a flow chart of sorts on the right side of the page. What this indicates is that what you do in whole group will greatly inform small group. So each and every day, you're going to be doing daily reviews. You will teach very explicit foundational skills lessons, but you will use something that we call checks for success to determine how your students are doing with those foundational skills. If students are struggling, you will be given page numbers that you can consult where you can find teacher-led small group activities. If students are doing well, of course, there will be page numbers that will suggest where you would find maintenance or even extension lessons for teacher-led small groups. You also see that there is independent practice available. Now let's talk a bit about the literature overview. I've mentioned previously that for every single week there would be a key concept or theme, if you will, as well as an essential question. All of the literature that students hear or read that week will come back to inform that theme and that essential question. So for the week that we'll be looking at, the essential question is, what do good citizens do? So within the Reading Writing Companion, I'll be introducing you to that in just a bit. there will be a shared read that students will enjoy reading during whole group. There will also be a collection of literature. It's a hardbound collection of literature that will contain 2 texts that students will read during whole group. The first is an anchor text. The second is a paired selection. So again, during whole group, students will be reading a shared read from the Reading Writing Companion, as well as an anchor text and paired selection within a hardbound collection of literature. Now, as you look on the right side of the page, you will see leveled readers, but you also want to make note of the fact that your interactive read aloud will be a trade book that you will share with the students. I'll talk more about that in just a bit. Now, the last overview that you will see before you begin your week of instruction will be a writing overview. Know that students are going to write analytically each and every day within Wonders. In fact, we say if I read about it, I write about it. So every single day, students will write analytically. They'll take notes. They will summarize. They will respond to literature. And you're going to see all of this analytical writing. But you'll also want to note that students will also be engaging in genre writing. Students will go through the entire writing process. Again, your curriculum map will tell you how this will happen, how many days over which it will happen, but in a bit, I'm going to share with you the tools that you will have for helping support students' genre writing. We'll now go into the instructional walkthrough. When you open up your teacher's edition to a particular week of instruction, you're going to see a suggested lesson plan. Now, let me be clear. Again, your curriculum map will guide you as to how you're going to teach Wonders. But I'd like to help you make sense of what you're seeing on the page in the Wonders Teacher's Edition. Note that the top of this page is white and that the bottom of the page is gold. This is very significant. Here's why. As you're turning through your Teacher's Edition, any page that has a white background has content that is meant to be taught in whole group. As you continue to turn through, you'll ultimately get to some yellow or gold pages. The gold pages contain content meant to be taught during small group. So again, this color coding is significant. Now, as you look at the white portion of the page, you're going to see that there is content that is considered core. There's also content that's considered optional. That optional content is in gray. Again, your curriculum map will make that decision for you. Now, as you look at the small group content, you should know that small group in Wonders supports 2 things. First is the acquisition of skills. Second, small group supports the reading of leveled readers. You will see how this all works in just a bit. Small group supports approaching level, on level, beyond level, as well as ELL. Now, previously, I mentioned that your interactive read alouds would be would happen through the use of the trade book. So as you look on the screen, you're going to see Judy Moody Saves the World. That goes very nicely with that essential question about being good citizens. Digitally, here's what we've done for you. We have made available to you some classroom library extended complex text lesson cards. So as you are reading these interactive read alouds, it could be that you will want some support. Well, what kind of support? Support that will help your students engage in collaborative conversation. Perhaps you need support about helping students understand the complexities of that particular story. So you will see ACT, or accessing complex text. Again, this will help you explain the complexities of this text. It could be that you might want your students to engage in close reading, that purposeful rereading, or in this case, a purposeful rehearing of the text. But these cards will support you in whatever it is that you want to do instructionally with these interactive read alouds. We also understand that you might want some tools that will help students sharpen their skills. Of course, these tools will go very nicely with these interactive read alouds. So online, we have placed a number of black line masters that will help you help the students engage in close reading. So know that you are well supported. Some of these interactive read alouds will also have a trailer-like video that you can share with the students before you begin reading the text. Not all of them have this feature, but a good many of them do. Now let's talk about foundational skills. I mentioned before that you would see all of the tools that you will have in print to support you in every area of wonders. Well, many of these tools that you will have in print will be tools that support foundational skills. You'll have things like high-frequency word cards, letter cards, sound spelling cards, photo cards, and the like. So how does foundational skills instruction work at second grade? So if you look on the screen, you will notice that every single day, your foundational skills will look and feel very similar in that we always begin with phonological awareness. We always stress the hearing of sounds before the association of the symbol. So as I look at this lesson from Unit 5, Week 3, the students are going to hear a poem called Chew a Cookie. The reason that they're going to listen to this poem is so that they can identify syllables. You will note that every single foundational skills lesson contains gradual release. We will always model, followed by giving the student guided practice and practice. So as the students are introduced to this poem, Chew a Cookie, they are listening for syllables or word parts. And you, the teacher, will model clapping as students hear those word parts. We'll go into guided practice with additional words that students will clap the parts of the word for. But the practice that students will need thereafter is provided in the practice book. We'll talk more about the practice book later, but know that there is always going to be practice available for all of the foundational skills. Now, we're still on day one, and we're now leaving phonological awareness, and we're moving into phonics. So the students are going to be working with variant vowels this week. So we're going to introduce the variant vowels using sound spelling cards that have the sounds on them that we're going to be focusing upon. And of course, again, students are going to go through guided practice as well as practice with these variant vowels. Again, you're going to find the practice in your practice book. Now, it should be stated that if students are having difficulty with these variant vowels, it could be that you will need to pivot right there on the spot and provide some instruction that will help the students make the connection. Notice on the page in front of you that there is a gold box that says Tier 2. If you notice that students are struggling, you can use this approach to help the students make a better connection to these variant vowels. And you will notice that on the pages. Now, again, we are within phonics still. We're going to start blending words with variant vowels. So if you look on the right side of the page, you will again see that we will use word building cards, and these word building cards will be how we model the blending of words with variant vowels. Well, part of the guided practice, and practice will occur through the phonics and fluency practice that you see inside of that yellow box. So here's what's so important. We don't want students to just be able to decode these words with variant vowels. We want them to understand that these words are words that will eventually find their way into sentences. So we want you to note that there is connected text always as students are practicing decoding. Also, note that there is always support on the page for when students might struggle with this part of the lesson. Notice those gold boxes. They're really important. Students will learn structural analysis. In the example that you see on the screen, students will learn contractions with not, but they will also learn plurals and other aspects of structural analysis. On the right side of the page, here we are still on day one. We are going to introduce high-frequency words. Now, back when I talked about the instructional routines, one of the important routines is, of course, the high-frequency word routine. Read, spell, write. Anytime students are introduced to high-frequency words, they will read the word, they will spell the word, they will write the word. And again, you're going to see that gradual release. Handwriting is an important part of foundational skills. So you will, of course, see practice for handwriting. Now, I'm sure that many of you are noticing that the handwriting on the screen is cursive handwriting. I should mention to you that for all of Unit 1, weeks 1 through 6, students are reviewing manuscript and actually practicing making curved lines. So it isn't till Unit 2 when students actually begin engaging in the cursive writing of capital and lowercase letters. Now, I want you to notice something very particular. I've mentioned checks for success before. If you look on the right side of the page, you will see an orange box. So here's what this orange box asks, can children decode words with the variant vowels upon which you're going to be focusing this week? So your answer will be either yes or no. Can children identify and read the high-frequency words? Of course, your answer will be either yes or no. Now, watch what this check for success does for us. So let's say my answer is no. I have students who are really struggling with these skills, but the no has nothing to do with language. If I go to the first box, which is orange, it says approaching. So for approaching level, I noticed that there are some page numbers that I can consult for a teacher-led small group lesson that will allow me to focus on those variant vowels and the high-frequency words. Well, let's say that no, my students actually aren't able to grasp these skills. Has everything to do with language. Notice in purple, you will see ELL. Again, you're going to see some page numbers where teacher-led small group lessons reside. Well, what if my answer is yes? My students are capable of decoding these variant vowels and identifying and reading the high-frequency words. In blue is on level. So if you want to give your students the opportunity to maintain skills through a teacher-led small group, you will find activities there. But then you will notice that the last yes is green for beyond level. This is where students will be able to be challenged and where children will have the opportunity for extension, but still in a teacher-led small group. As you look at the foundational skills, lessons, and wonders as you go from day to day, you're going to notice that we always begin with phonemic awareness, moving on to phonics. There are days where structural analysis and high-frequency words are added in also. But know, again, that your foundational skills will be daily and very explicit and very systematically taught. Now, I mentioned before that second grade has a foot in decodable text and a foot in complex text. You will have decodable readers that you will be able to use to help your students engage in the reading of decodable text. Let's talk about how these are structured. First of all, there are 6 decodable readers. Why 6? Because there are 6 units. So these are unitized. So if we go specifically to Unit 5, which is the unit that we've been focusing on, it's called Let's Make a Difference, because everything in Unit 5 is about good deeds and being a good citizen. As your students open up the decodable readers, they will see that there are 2 selections for each week. So remember, the students are focusing on variant vowels this particular week. We have the story, Soon the North Wind Blew. We also have It Couldn't Be Done. So the students will practice reading these decodable readers in whole group. Well, when will they do that? So you will notice on day 1, the students will be introduced to the decodable reader. Now, on the screen, you can see that you're going to be focusing on foundational skills. You give the students the opportunity to read the decodable reader, but then the very next day, day 2, the decodable reader can be reread. Now, notice those checks for success. If students are struggling with decoding the words in these readers, there will be teacher-led small group lessons for them. If students are succeeding wildly, there will be teacher-led small group lessons for them. Now, on day 3, this is when the second title gets introduced. And on day 4, it is reread. So every single week, through weeks 1 through 5, I should say, through weeks 1 through 5 of each unit, the students will have the opportunity to read to decodable readers. Now, you should know that you will receive 6 copies of each decodable reader. However, because of the fact that you're going to be engaging in the reading of these decodables in whole group, it could be that you will project these decodable readers so that students can engage in the reading of this decodable text. All right, so you've heard quite a lot during our first 50 minutes or so together. I want to stop and give you the chance to weigh in. So how are you going to weigh in? Well, in this way. If you would, get a phone or another device and get it ready, because I'm going to be asking you a question. So if you would, take that secondary phone or device, and if you would, go to www.menti, M-E-N-T-I, I'm sorry, I think it's covering the, hold on just a moment. I have to wait for this box to scroll up, and it will in just a moment. Well, while it's thinking about moving, here's the question that I want you to consider. What is something that you have seen in the foundational skills portion of this Wonders 2020 training that you really like? So that's the question that you're going to consider. And let me see if I can make this thing move. I might actually have to move it myself. But you're going to go to www.menti.com, and you will use the code 460902. And if you would, type in something that you've seen in the foundational skills portion of Wonders 2020 that you really like. Decodable readers, yes, they are always a hit. And they're really so nice. Oh, again, the decodable. Okay, that phonics is every day. Yay. Small group differentiation. And when we get into it, you're really going to like it. The model, the guided practice, the practice. Yes, that gradual release. I like the fact that there's differentiated instruction for pretty much every aspect of the phonics. I love how the orange box helps you differentiate the lessons and gives you immediate resources. I love that the program always begins with phonological awareness. Yes. More people like the decodables and the reinforcement of the phonics skills. Cursive handwriting. The layout, very nice. Thank you so much for participating. I was really hoping that you would see some things that you liked. This is just so exciting. Okay, great. Wow, cursive. Very nice. Okay, all right. So my plan is to capture all of your responses and certainly share them with SCS so that they can see the things that have really resonated with you. Okay, so You can keep posting your answers if you would like. I would like to do this. I want to open up for Q&A. So I know that it's possible that Ms. Darlene Greer has been answering your SCS-related questions, but what I'd like to do is tackle any of the Wonders-related questions that remain. So if Ms. Darlene Greer, if you can let me know if there are questions that I need to answer, I'm happy to do so.
There are currently no questions in the chat box.
Okay.
So that means you're doing an awesome job. One quick question.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
There are questions coming in now. How much time is usually allotted for small group instruction and whole group? And then I have a question about the bit.ly link. I will share that link in just a second so that everybody gets it. But more around the time allotted for whole and small group.
So frankly, that's going to be an SCS call. So of course, for us at McGraw-Hill, it is of course wonderful if you have between 90 and 120 minutes for whole and small group. However, it is certainly true that based on what your priorities are, you might need all of that time, or you might curtail your whole and small group portions. But that is generally something that is left to the district. And remember how I mentioned to you that there would be an area that would show what is considered core and what's considered optional? Those school districts that have more time tend to use both what's considered core and optional, and school districts that don't have a lot of time do tend to stick mostly with what's core. But again, that is a district call. Does that make sense?
And I want to add to that, I want to add from the SCS perspective, we are working on developing our framework. So we know that Wonders is a little different from what we're used to when we have a separate skills block and then a separate meaning-based block. Wonders is integrated. And so we will have an instructional framework. We will also note in our curriculum maps what your allotted time for that particular lesson is for each of those different components called out in the curriculum or in the lesson for that day.
Okay. Very nice. Are there more questions, or should we continue on at this time? Now, note that there will be other opportunities for Q&A. Ms. Darlene, if you need me to show the bit.ly link again now, I can, although I do have it included closer to the end. But it's your call. You let me know what it is that you need me to do. I'm sorry, if you're talking, you're still muted.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your question.
I was saying if you needed me to show the bit.ly link again now, I can, although I do have it included closer to the end of the session. But it's your call. You let me know what it is that you need.
No. Go on with your presentation. I'm going to put it in the chat so everybody can grab it.
Perfect. All right. So as I move on, I want to talk to you about the practice opportunities. So I've mentioned the practice book a few times now. The practice book is going to allow your students to practice phonological awareness, phonemic awareness, phonics, high-frequency words, spelling, handwriting, grammar, and vocabulary. Just a word about spelling. The spelling is differentiated. So there is on-level, approaching level, and beyond level spelling. But please keep this in mind. It doesn't matter what level the student is on. The student will always see the phonics pattern that is being focused upon in all of the spelling words. Now, let me also mention this about the practice book. So you will notice that you're receiving a black line master of the practice book. Here's what this means. You are able to run off any copies of the practice book that you would like to run off. But note that if you assign any of the content inside of the practice book digitally, if you assign it digitally, it can be auto-graded. Anything that's auto-graded, friends, will report to something called the data dashboard. I'm going to share that with you later, but I wanted you to know what your options are with respect to the practice book. Yes, you can print pages, or yes, you can assign the content digitally. Okay? So more about that later. So I want to turn the focus away from foundational skills, but remember, we're still in the instructional walkthrough, if you will. So after students have learned foundational skills, the next part of the lesson involves them using the reading writing companion. So let me talk to you about what the reading writing companion is. The Reading Writing Companion is a consumable resource that students will receive for the life of the adoption. So you don't have to worry that, maybe students shouldn't write in it because they'll get messed up. You will always receive more copies, so that's not a worry. The Reading Writing Companion totally integrates reading and writing and will be used really throughout the week. So how will the students first encounter the Reading Writing Companion? Well, as they open up the week, the first page shows the students the essential question. So for this particular week, the essential question is, what do good citizens do? So the students are going to see an image. They'll also be asked to engage in a collaborative conversation surrounding that question. But here's what we know. Far too often, there are students who don't have the background to be able to really confidently engage in the answering of that question. So every single essential question will have a video attached. Here's what the video for What Do Good Citizens Do looks and feels like. Have a look. Have a listen.
Citizens do. There are many ways to be a good citizen. These good citizens are selling lemonade to raise money for their town's animal shelter. Good citizens help others. These children are collecting food for a food drive at their school. The food will help hungry people in their community. Good citizens also take their rights and responsibilities seriously. Voting is one right citizens have. These people are taking their right to vote seriously. They are good citizens too.
All right, so now students will be able to engage in collaborative conversation regarding what good citizens do. Oops, I didn't mean for the video to start again, sorry. So on the page, students are also going to see a graphic organizer. So here's the significance of this graphic organizer. As students discuss what it is that good citizens do, they're going to fill in the graphic organizer with some ideas that they, with their partner, have come up with about being a good citizen. So here's an immediate opportunity for students to talk and write in the Reading Writing Companion. The reading writing companion is where students will encounter the shared reads. Now remember, these shared reads will be read during whole group. The focus is always very squarely on close reading in these shared reads. So students are going to see red, green, and blue tags inside of their reading writing companion. You, the teacher, will see the same red, green, and blue tags in your teacher's edition. So how does this color coding reflect the close reading routine? Well, first of all, I should tell you that our close reading routine is the brainchild of our author, Dr. Doug Fisher. When students see the red read tag, they are simply just reading to find out what the author said. Now, we do want them to identify, in this case, key ideas and details about what makes a good citizen. We understand that some students might take notes or summarize, but we also understand that there may be some difficulties that students will encounter as they read. And that's when that ACT, Accessing Complex Text feature, is going to be used, okay? Now, when the students go back into the text to reread, they're going to see green tags associated with their rereading. Here, they're delving more specifically into how the author said what he or she said. Now, this is where analysis begins to take place. Analysis of text, craft, and structure. This purposeful rereading of the text will be done through mini lessons and prompts. Now, after students have had numerous opportunities to read and hear text, we want students to integrate what they know, in this case about being good citizens, with another piece of text or another piece of media. This is really the meeting of the new with the known, if you will. So let me show you how this looks and feels. So here's the shared read for this particular week. It's called A Difficult Decision. So you will notice that the first time the students read, they're going to see some red tags that they will observe. So they are being asked to make and confirm predictions. Underline the sentence that helps you make a prediction about what Wyatt will do with the game master. Why does he decide to do this? We also want students on the right side of the page, you'll see that they are underlining a word which means without hope. Circle the ending because the focus is also on suffixes. So this is what's happening the first time students read. Now, as students reread this text, here are the things that we want them to focus on. Author's craft. How does the author use Paul's dialogue to help you understand Wyatt's traits? Why does the author include a description of the boy who lost the game master? So you're sitting there and you're thinking, well, you did say that students would reread and that there would be prompts, but that there would also be mini lessons. What do the mini lessons look like? Well, the mini lessons, I'm going to show you in just a second, will have students focusing on a particular question. But it's really important before I show you the mini lessons that you see that vocabulary is taught in context. So what does that mean? Does this mean that students will never have any vocabulary instruction? No, indeed not. Students will learn vocabulary every single day, but we will not spoon feed the vocabulary to them. On the page, students will see the vocabulary word a sentence where the word is used meaningfully, and then they'll see a question. So here's an example. Champion. Maya won the game and became the new champion. What would you get if you were the champion of a game? And so the students might write, I would get a trophy if I were the champion, or I would win a prize if I were the champion. We really want students to learn these words in context because this helps students take the words and make them their own. Just think about it. If students can make a personal connection with vocabulary, not only will they use the vocabulary more frequently, but they will take ownership of that vocabulary. Now, I mentioned before that the students were learning about suffixes. So as you see on the right side of the page, here is another opportunity for students to work with suffixes. Again, using the text as the source. Now, let's talk about these mini lessons. So you're going to see that there are comprehension strategy mini lessons, comprehension skill mini lessons that deal with literary elements and text features. Here's an example of the comprehension skill mini lesson. So let me explain how it will work. In your teacher's edition, you will see the instruction that you are going to render during this lesson. Now, at the top of the page where it says point of view, and it explains a little about point of view, this is where you, the teacher, are teaching and modeling. This is the I do. So the I is you, the teacher. But then you're going to see an opportunity for the we do. This is where you and the students are going to go back into a particular portion of the text together. And together you will discuss why this graphic organizer has been filled in the way that it has been filled in. But then you're going to see that there is a you do. Now let me be clear. In this case, you is not independent. It is collaborative. So the students are asked to continue rereading the story, fill in the graphic organizer to show how Wyatt's point of view changes from the beginning to the middle to the end of the story. Well, where are students filling in the graphic organizer? It's actually on the page, the facing page of the Reading Writing Companion. So we want the text to really drive all that students are doing with respect to this close reading routine. So all of the mini lessons will be driven by text, and they will all feature that I do, we do, you do. Very similarly to the way that you saw that gradual release in the foundational skills lessons. Another part of rereading has to do with students being able to respond to the text that they're reading. So the students are asked to talk about the prompts below. Think about how the author shows Wyatt's thoughts and feelings. Use your notes and graphic organizer. What does Wyatt learn about being a good citizen? Why is this lesson important for all citizens? Now on the page you're going to see some quick tips. These quick tips include sentence starters that will help students who might be having trouble getting started with their writing. You'll also see grammar connections. We're reminding students about the grammar that they've learned that would be well placed in this response. Now, we want students to have lots of great opportunities to practice. We want them to practice comprehension skills. We want them to practice foundational skills. All that students learn, we want them to practice. And one of the ways that students will practice with Wonders is through, of course, games. Now, There are weekly games that collect data. Now, that said, there are many that do not collect data. But you're probably wondering, well, how will I know if a game collects data? There is a particular icon that you will see on that game. Well, what happens to the data that gets collected when my students play the game? After the game is played, the information about your student's performance goes into what's called the data dashboard. So the data dashboard will show you information about individual students or, of course, the class as a whole. The data dashboard is color-coded. Where you see red, students are struggling. Where you see yellow, students need some help, but they're not floundering altogether. And where you see green, students are doing fairly well. We wanted you to be able to look at how students are performing and have resources that you could either print or digitally assign to students that would help them if they're struggling, give them maintenance opportunities if they are doing well, or for those students who are really, really doing well, resources that will help them with extensions. All of that is in your data dashboard. I'll talk more in just a bit about some Tier 2 resources that we've built in. You'll see those in a bit when we talk about small groups. But just know that all learners are supported through the data dashboard and the assignable resources. Actually, you know, come to think of it, let's talk more about those Tier 2 resources now. Do you remember how when we were in the foundational skills lessons, you saw yellow boxes at the bottoms of the pages, and those yellow boxes had a Tier 2 designation on them? Well, when you get into small groups, you will also see more Tier 2 lesson designations. But here's what we knew, that you might need even more support for your Tier 2 students. So we digitally placed Tier 2 intervention guides online for you. They cover comprehension, fluency, phonics, vocabulary, and writing and grammar. So you're able to go into these manuals and find not only fully fleshed out gradual release lesson plans, but you also have black line masters that you can use to give your students practice. So we wanted you to have more Tier 2 resources, and so this is where they reside. Now, go back, if you will, mentally to the reading writing companion. Let's think about this. We started the week using the reading writing companion. The students were able to talk about the essential question. They engaged in collaborative conversation. They read a shared read. They reread a shared read and really started digging into a close reading routine. So you might think that the support that the reading writing companion offers stops there with the shared read. Indeed not. So let's think about it. After the students have engaged in the shared read, they're going to move into that hardbound collection of text where they will find both the anchor text and the paired text. The reading writing companion is still going to be there for them. Well, how so? So for this particular week, the anchor text is Grace for President. So, of course, the students will be supported in the reading of the text, but I wanted to focus on the rereading of the text. So notice on this page, the students are asked How does the author use the illustrations to help you predict what will happen next? Now, I want you to think back. When students were working with the shared reads, weren't they also making predictions? Yes, they were. So now students will use a talk, cite, write routine to help them be able to answer this question. First, they will talk together. They're going to reread page 408, and they will talk about what Grace says and what is on the wall behind her. But then they will cite text evidence that they found on that page. They will write clues from the text and the illustration. Then they'll write how they show what will happen next. And so the students will fill in that graphic organizer. Now, after the students have filled in the graphic organizers, they will use what they've captured in the graphic organizers to write the answer. So talk, cite, and now we write. The author uses illustrations to help you predict, and the students will write what? Remember those quick tips that we've previously seen, as well as students will be reminded to make inferences. Here's more of the support that they will have, where students, again, are engaging in talk, cite, write. They are asked, what does the author's placement of illustrations show you about the campaign? Students have an opportunity to respond to reading, discuss the prompt below, summarize what has happened in the story so far to help you answer the question. How does the author keep the reader interested in the story about Grace's run for class president? Again, those quick tips are there. Now, here's what we realized. Students would not be able to engage in close reading and annotation of text with the selections that are in that hardbound collection of text. So we reprinted part of the paired selection, okay? We placed it right in the reading writing companion. And so now the students are able to engage in the following. Reread the paragraph. Underline the sentence with information the author gives about Camp Smiles and the campers who go there. Circle what campers can do at Camp Smiles. Discuss why Camp Smiles is a special place. Write evidence from the paragraph that supports your answer. Okay? So again, you will notice along the way, we will always reprint part of the paired selection so that students can engage with the text and have that same scaffolding that they previously experienced. Every type of text that the students are experiencing in whole group will be supported by this reading writing companion. Now, here's what happens when students integrate. This is where the blue tag is shown. So the students will have read stories about being a good citizen. They would have heard you read the selection, the trade book library selection, Judy Moody Saves the World. So now the students are taking what they've learned from the selections that they've read and the song America the Beautiful, and they're going to connect those two to see how they both discuss good citizenship. And so we always want students to have an additional piece of media to compare and contrast with selections that they have read. Again, connecting the new with the known. So now you have seen what the reading writing companion does. You have seen how the instruction is structured from the time that the student begins their foundational skills lessons through the use of the Reading Writing Companion. Now, I want to stop and find out if there are any questions before we quickly go into writing, and I'll go into small groups, and then we'll quickly go online. So, Ms. Darling Greer, if there are any questions that I need to address, I'm happy to do so at this time.
There are currently no questions in the chat box that have not yet been addressed.
Okay, very good. I'll keep moving on. We're in the home stretch. All right, so let's talk about writing and language arts. Every single day, students are going to be learning about vocabulary. They will be learning about grammar. They will be learning about spelling. It's all included in the instruction. But I want to talk about the writing process. Now, again, your curriculum map is going to show you how you will actually teach the writing process. So I want to be very clear. If you look at the screen, Wonders makes it possible for students to take 4 weeks to complete a piece of process writing. From evaluating the expert model through publishing. It is possible to take 4 weeks. It could be that you will do this within a shorter time frame. It could be that you will use this time frame that you see on the screen. But let me just talk you through how we do this. So, of course, you're going to see the 3 most important types of writing reflected in this process writing, but you'll also see that we have included some other types of writing. For the week that we're looking at, the students are writing a biography. So when we begin with the expert model, it's always, the expert model is always from a piece of text that the students have already read. Now, let me be clear. The selection that you see on the screen is a selection that students would have read during a previous week. But we'll talk about why this selection is a perfect expert model. The students will analyze the expert model. Then we move into planning, where students will brainstorm, where they'll choose their topics. They'll consider the purpose and the audience. They will organize. Now, because of the fact that the students are writing a biography, they need to know what primary and secondary sources are. And so you will see that that is all explained here. The students will engage in writing a draft. Again, you will see a mentor text, if you will, a text that students will have previously read. And the draft will be done through the lens of this mentor text. The students will be supported in writing their draft through the lessons they will have learned while focusing on this mentor text. The students will revise. And we always remind the students of the grammar connections. Grammar is not something that students are going to be learning in isolation. Grammar always works in service of the writing that the students are doing, and it's always very meaningfully attached. As students continue to revise, they will be engaged in peer and teacher conferences. Now, remember, the students will have been engaged in those social-emotional lessons. They will have engaged in lots of collaborative conversations. So peer conferences actually can work very nicely because students are learning how to be kind but firm with each other, how to give good feedback. There are various checklists that are available along the way also. Students will edit and proofread and again make those nice connections to the grammar. Ultimately, students will publish, present, and evaluate. Now, it's important for you to be able to know that opportunities to assess speaking and listening skills do exist within the program, and as students present their writing, that's a golden opportunity. But we want students to understand what a good listener does, what a good presenter does, and so the students will see checklists along the way. Now, know that as you are teaching this process writing, there will be lots of support that the students will have, lots of reminders of what it is that they have learned. There will be opportunities to engage in peer conferencing. There will be rubrics. There will be lots of checklists. Now, of course, you will see the instruction that goes along with this content in your teacher's edition, but keep in mind what you're seeing here is just what the students will see. So the Reading Writing Companion really does live up to its name in that it does support the reading of text, but it also supports both analytical and process writing. Now I'm going to turn away and go into small group now. So we're leaving home group and we're going to talk about small group. You will recall that I mentioned that small group supports both the acquisition of skills and the reading of leveled readers. So on the screen, you are seeing an approaching level group of lessons. You will see lessons for approaching level, on level, beyond level, and English language learners. Please remember, these are teacher-led small group lessons. So these are not activities that the students are just going to do on their own. You will see that there are more lessons for approaching level and ELL than there are for on and beyond level, but that is as you would expect. Okay, now remember, whole group informs small group. Those checks for success will send you to these particular pages. Well, what about the leveled readers? Tell me about those. So there will be weeks where you have fiction leveled readers. There will be weeks where you have nonfiction leveled readers. Now let me be clear. You are seeing fictional leveled readers on the screen. On weeks where you have fictional leveled readers, you will always have 3 titles. One for approaching, the on and ELL will share a title, and the beyond level will have its own title. Well, what happens on weeks where the title is nonfiction? All 4 titles will be the same. We will simply render the content over the 4 levels. So let me be very clear about these leveled readers. They also go very nicely with the essential question, with the theme. So for approaching level, we have fixing the playground. On an ELL, the food crew. Beyond level, how many grades? These are all selections that talk about good citizenship. What you'll find is that these selections have been leveled. So the lexiles will be different, but what remains the same in every one of them is the theme is the same. The vocabulary will be the same. The comprehension skill and strategy will be the same. Notice for ELL, there is a language detective feature that you'll find inside. You'll also find for your English language learners, there's more caption support. Every leveled reader has 2 selections inside. So the title that you see on the cover, but then there's also a paired selection. So you'll have lots of great resources for students, a lot of great literature for students to read. How are you supported as you are teaching the leveled readers in small group? First of all, in your yellow pages in your Teacher's Edition, you will see some instruction. But for those of you who want to focus more intently on the complex text features and the close reading features, there are leveled reader lesson cards that can be used to really tease out those finer points. Now, again, both types of instruction are great. It just depends on what your focus is. Let me be clear. Decodable readers and leveled readers are not the same. Let me be clear. Decodable readers will be read in whole group. Decodable readers come on one level. Leveled readers are used during small group, and they are leveled. Now, you're going to receive 6 copies of each title, but again, these leveled readers are used during small group. Well, what if I need more titles? On the Wonder site, you're going to see that you can search a database of leveled readers, Wonder's leveled readers for kindergarten through 6th grade. If you want and need more leveled readers, you will have them. I'll share with you where these are once I get into the online resources. Okay, so you're sitting there and you're wondering, well, you know, there's a lot of great support for teacher-led small group. What are my other students supposed to be doing while I'm engaging in my teacher-led small group? Well, you have a couple of options. First of all, you've got leveled workstation cards. These are provided to you for every single week. You have one for reading, one for writing, one for social studies or science, depending on what the focus is, and one for phonics. I think I didn't say phonics yet. So how are these leveled? If you look at the card on the very front, you will see a blue rim around the activity. Blue is the color of on level. So that's how you know that this is the on level activity. But then when you flip the card over, you will see that there is an activity that has an orange rim. Orange is the color of approaching level. There's another activity that has a green rim. Green is the color of beyond level. The only group that does not have an activity on these workstation cards would be your English language learners. Okay? So you can choose to circulate the cards or you can circulate the children. It's really up to you. But these are activities that very meaningfully go with what you are teaching for this week. Remember, the practice book is also an option for independent practice. You'll also find that there is digital content that you might choose to use. All right, just to recap, think back to your week where your essential question was about what good citizens do. Look at how all of your literature was connected. You had your interactive read aloud, Judy Moody Saves the World. Your shared read, A Difficult Decision. Your anchor text, Grace for President. Your paired selection, Helping to Make Smiles. And of course, your leveled readers. All connected. Please, friends, know that whether you are in whole group or small group, all of the literature that you and your students will experience in Wonders will all be deeply connected. Same content focus, same essential question, same phonics, vocabulary strategy. You'll find the same comprehension strategy and skill as well as the same writing focus. Same grammar, same conventions. Now, I want to stop talking for a moment and give you the chance to, again, weigh in about what you're seeing within Wonders. So I want to go to my Menti site. So go ahead and get your device ready. And I'm going to ask a second question. All right, so here is the question that you are answering this time. Which Wonders 2020 feature are you most excited about implementing? Remember, you're going to go to menti.com and put in that same code from before, which is 460902. So weigh in, if you will, and let me know which feature you are most excited to implement. Oh, the online features. And actually, we're getting ready to go there in just a second so that you can see some of what's available. Oh, all of them. Small group based on whole group, okay? All of it. Anchor text, okay? And they are all authentic text that you could actually buy at Amazon or at a bookstore. So these are all wonderful, wonderful texts. Excited about the shared read, the writing. Love all the different types of text. Bringing back cursive writing and grammar. Small group writing. Mentor text and grammar being connected within the writing that we write every day. The reading writing companion is exciting. Oh, this is great. This is great. Keep continuing to list the things that you like. It's always really exciting for me to come back and have another look at these. I will share your responses. They are anonymous, of course, but I will share them with the district. Thank you so much for chiming in. Now, I want to go back and I want to talk about assessment very, very quickly, and then we'll spend a little bit of time online. All right, with respect to assessment, note that your students will have many opportunities for formative assessments, but I wanted to point out something that often gets overlooked. In the back of each reading writing companion, you see an opportunity for formative assessment called Show What You Learned. Now, this is always a spiral review of all the weeks of the unit, okay? So the students will be told what it is that spiral review is covering. But the students will be able to engage in a bit of reading, and then they will answer some questions, which will, of course, reflect the skills that students learned over the previous unit. They have an opportunity to extend their learning. Here, students are working with prefixes and suffixes. And we want students to be accountable for what they're learning. So they themselves will track their progress and talk about their learning. When it comes to summative assessment, we've already talked about those placement and diagnostic assessments that you will have available. But there are also progress monitoring assessments. Now, these are generally meant to be administered every other week. Why every other week? Because remember, in Genre Studies 1 and 2, those studies last for 2 weeks. So think about it. At the end of Genre Study 1 and 2, you will have students read 2 cold reads, And the assessment will either assess comprehension skills or vocabulary strategies. But remember, Genre Study 3 is short. So the Genre Study 3 assessment will only have, one selection, okay? So you will have some questions about comprehension and some questions about vocabulary, okay? So the Genre Study 3 assessment is a little bit different. You have unit assessment, which will cover comprehension of literature and informational text, vocabulary acquisition and use, conventions, and genre writing in response to resources. And then because we understood how important it was for students to practice the way that they would ultimately play, we have Tennessee benchmark assessments. Now these are formatted like T and Ready, okay? We wanted students to be able to engage in those cold reads and answer the types of questions that they would ultimately find on that test so that they can be ready. It's never too soon for them to be introduced to this format. Your students do have the option of taking the benchmark, unit, and progress monitoring assessments online. Those screening and diagnostic tests need to be taken paper pencil. Now here's the benefit of having students take assessments online. If they do take them online, the information does feed into the data dashboard, which you previously saw. So if you're interested in being more data-driven, perhaps online assessment is something that you want to work towards sooner rather than later. But that decision is yours and yours alone. All right, now with that said, I'm going to turn to the online resources. So on your screen, you will see a URL along with a username and password that you can use now to get into the digital content. SCS is going to set up your own personal login through your SCS portal. Once you are able to log in as yourself, you won't need this demo login any longer, okay? So be careful. The T in teachers for the username is lowercase. The T in teachers in the password is capital. So you want to really be careful of that. Know that this very short digital introduction that I'm getting ready to give you will not, and I repeat, not be the only digital training that you will receive. This is really just enough to whet your appetite about what is to come. And while I am in this overview, I'm going to show you where you can go to dig more deeply into Wonders. So if you want more on-demand PD, I'm going to show you where that resides. All right, so hopefully everyone who needs this has taken a picture of it or written it down. I will show this again. I will show the login again, but I'm going to go now into the online features, and I'm going to share them with you. Now, hopefully, I haven't been logged out. Oops. Let's see if it will let me stay. All right, so here is the Wonders landing page for Unit 5, Week 3. Notice that once I log into Wonders, I do have the ability to go to a particular unit or a particular week to look at it. I see my genre focus and my essential question, but I also see my days of the week. Why is this important? Because based on the day that I choose, I get the whole and small group options for those days. Well, what do you mean? So if I open up whole group, I see the content that Wonders designed to be a part of that day of instruction. So if I simply want to look at a part of the lesson, I can click on it. And once I click on it, I'll see any resources that can be used for that part of the lesson. So no matter where I click, I will see resources that go with that part of the lesson. I'll also see a lesson plan, if you will, teaching instructions also here, okay? So if I close up the whole group, I can open up small group and go to my particular group. I can open up my leveled reader. Here's the leveled reader along with a graphic organizer. Here's my leveled reader lesson card. Here's a set of retelling cards that even go with this selection. Okay? Now, if I go back to my landing page, you're going to notice that there is a presentation that we created for every single day of instruction. If I want to view this presentation as McGraw-Hill created it, all I have to do is click go, and my presentation begins. So the first thing that my students are going to do clearly on this particular day is engage in the shared read. So you'll notice that the shared read, as are all the reads, audio capable.
A difficult decision.
You can see that there are highlighters, pens, even Post-it notes available to use with this digital content so that students can annotate. As I move from slide to slide, I can see lots of different opportunities for students to do lots of different things. Now, if I want to see all of the content, I can click on what looks like a shade screen, if you will, and I can see all of the content. There are lots of games here. There are sound spelling cards. My Decodable is here. I've got vocabulary cards, you name it. I've got all this content here. Now, here's what we realize. You might not want or need all of this content on one particular day. So, yes, you can actually customize this content. But remember, when I click from here, I am accepting the presentation as it was created by McGraw-Hill. Now, the next thing that you'll want to see is the weekly planner. So if I click on Plan and go to Weekly Planner, here's where I'll see all of the content that resides under whole group and small group. If my curriculum map tells me that I'm going to teach, and this is just an example, the anchor text starting on day 2 as opposed to day 3, I can move it over. And when I move it over, all of the content that went with that, that lesson part will now be in the presentation that I saw on day 2. Well, what if the curriculum map tells me that I'm not teaching grammar on this particular day? What if it tells me that the grammar will not be taught at all? Again, this is just an example. I can take this part of the lesson and put it into the holding bin. That way, I don't have to worry about any of that content opening up in my presentation. Now, if you find that you've manipulated the calendar to the point where you no longer recognize it, you can actually always go over to the Reset button and click OK to reset, and it will pop everything back into its original place. If you want to see your weekly standards, they are here. Now, under resources, and resources will be very critical, very, very critical, you will notice the resource library being the first option. Now, remember how I showed you the presentation that was created for day 2? What you're seeing here are all the slides in that presentation. It could be that I don't want my students to play this pronoun-verb agreement game. All I have to do is click on the wheel and say, remove this resource from the presentation. It's gone. It could be that I want this game to be played before students read the shared read. I can grab it and put it there. So that's how your presentations get customized. Look down at the bottom of the page. You will see all of these different links for all of these different types of resources. If you don't know where a particular resource is, you can always do a keyword search. So just type in the term, hit search, and your results will pop up over to the right. Now, earlier you saw that there was a leveled reader database. Let me be clear about where this resides, because some of you have probably noticed that there is a leveled reader link here in gray. There's also a leveled reader link here in blue. What's the difference? If you click on the leveled reader link in gray, that's where you would find the leveled reader database. So you can pull up kindergarten through 6th grade leveled readers by clicking on that gray leveled reader area. If you click on the leveled reader link here in blue, these will just be the leveled readers for your grade level. But this is where you can find those lesson cards, the leveled readers themselves, and this is where you can even print leveled readers under printable leveled readers. Going back into resources, I did mention to you that there are professional development tools available. If you click on professional development, you remember that instructional routines handbook that I mentioned? Using your filter on the left, if you click on instructional routines, here's the instructional routine handbook right here. It will open as a PDF, so you can very easily download this to your device if you'd like. Now, I know that there are many of you who will want to see some portions of lessons taught. So if you go to classroom videos, you filter, find the type of lesson you're interested in, and you will find videos that will show that type of lesson being taught. You also have digital help here in gray. Again, you have to filter, but once you say what type of content you're interested in, you will see that you can click on videos which will show you exactly what to do as you try to use that particular digital asset. Now, for those of you who want to go more deeply into Wonders, both digitally and from a resources aspect, here's what I recommend. Under professional development, again, you will see filters. The very first one, learn to use Wonders. Select that. Where you see this green box, this is where you can learn more about Wonders basics. Choose your grade band, and then you choose the portion that you're most interested in, and then you'll be able to choose.
Select each circle to learn about the features in your Teacher's Edition lesson.
So if I want to know more about the Teacher's Edition, I pull this up and I click on the circles and it will tell me more about each feature. I click here.
Check for success prompts help you determine if students need more support or are ready to extend their learning during small group instruction. Specific differentiation.
Okay, so you get the idea. Now, for those of you who want to do more with the digital, you will click on the blue box, okay? Basics were green, digital will be blue. So when you click on the blue box, now, word to the wise, you will never need to roster your students. You can forget about that. SCS will do that for you, okay? So don't worry about that. Don't worry about setting up the calendar. SCS is going to take care of that for you, okay, to my understanding. But you might want to look into Plan and Teach and more resources. And you will note that there are some PDFs that you can pull up. And if you do the whole course, it will offer you a certificate of completion. Now, there's so much more that I could show you, but time is not going to permit it because we actually are at the end of our time together. But here's what I'd like to do. I first of all want to invite you to, again, take down the URL and username and password for getting into Wonders content. It's on the screen. And don't worry, I'm about to show you the same thing, but in another format. I want to remind you, for those who want to have more on-demand content, you do have the interactive digital quick start in blue and the Wonders Basics in green. The URL and username and password are to the right. So please, please avail yourselves of that information. As we come to an end here, I want to revisit the objective. It is my hope and prayer that you gained an understanding of the main print components in Wonders 2020 and their instructional purposes. It is my hope that you gained an understanding of how units are structured and how the lessons are formatted. I hope you gained an understanding of instructional lesson flow for both whole and small group. And I also hope that you gained an understanding of assessment options. Hopefully you gained an understanding of the digital resources. Note that you will have more training, and that you also gained an understanding of on-demand professional development and support resources. I know that the bit.ly link was placed in the chat box earlier for those of you who didn't see it, but just to cover my bases, if you need that bit.ly link, it is there on the screen for you yet again. As we part, I am going to provide my email address if you have Wonders-related questions. And while I know I've gone over by a couple of minutes, I do want to ask if there are any questions that remain that need to be addressed now. Ms. Darling Greer.
I do want to say that for each session, for each week of sessions that we have, the CNI team is sending out a response to questions that have been dropped in the chat box, because we do get a report of all the questions in the chat box. So we're sending out questions. So if your question wasn't answered, please be on the lookout for that email, and it'll have answers to those questions. Also, feel free to email your CNI team whenever you have a question. Reach out to us. We have a standard answer response time of 24 hours. This is a busy time for us, so be a little patient. You know, we like to get it within a couple of hours, but sometimes it takes a little bit longer. We did have one question, Dierdre, and it was more so around like the vocabulary words and high frequency words. Are those printed on cardstock or as flashcards with the Wonders program, or is that something that teachers will have to create on their own.
So from my understanding, for second grade, you do receive the high frequency word cards in your materials. In fact, I'm going to quickly open up the bit.ly and look at the components list, and I think that it will tell me as much. So teachers should not have to print those out. Let's see here. I'm opening it up, and we're going to go to the component list. And let me just make this a little larger. So let's see. Yes, Wonders Grade 2 set of high frequency cards. So yes, those will be provided to you already printed out. If you're talking, Miss Darling Greer, I can't hear you. I'm not sure if you are responding.
I think that, I'm sorry, I was engaged in looking at the list again. So,
do I need to make it larger? Let me make it larger because it is hard to see. Let me make it 150 times larger here.
Yeah,
okay.
That was Casey Wing who asked that question. She asked about the vocabulary words. The visual cards are included. The high frequency word cards are included. Spelling word cards are included. I think that answers the question, and there are no more questions in the chat box. And again, we will send out a report next week of all the questions from this week. So there might be questions in other sessions that you didn't think to ask because we have sessions running all week. So there might be questions in other sessions that you didn't think to ask, and you'll get those questions and answers as well.
That's great. Thank you so much for being here to support the participants and to support me. I really, really appreciate your help, and I hope that everyone got what he or she came for. And I really appreciate you taking the time to be here today.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you guys to all of the participants. You guys have an awesome Wednesday. You will get your credit in PLZ. I will make sure of it. Any questions, feel free to give us an email. Thank you.
Do you need me to flash the PLZ slide again, explaining how that credit will be provided?
Absolutely, absolutely. That would be great.
Okay. So we want to make sure that everyone here signed in through a device because we found that sometimes when you call in just on a phone, it does not provide your name. And so if you had to sign in to a device and use a phone, you should be covered. But if you just called in on a phone, it could be that we don't know who you are. And you want to be sure that the McGraw-Hill report that is sent to SCS has you listed as a participant. And I'll leave this up for another few seconds for those of you who need it, but hopefully everyone is accounted for. Is there anything else that you wanted me to cover or show again, Ms. Darling Greer, or do we think that all hearts and minds are clear at this point?
I think we're all good.
Okay. Thank you all so much, and take care, everyone.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day.